I get to be part of this great company. And every time I see people, I see people like you, and I look past you, and I look behind you, and it makes me realize you guys are in your homes, you've got families, and you're part of this Beachbody community because you've got hopes and dreams. You want to somehow change your world. And of course, we have an incredibly huge BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal as a company to become the best, the most trusted and well-respected fitness company in the entire world. Okay, and that's a huge deal. And we have chosen our method of doing that. The channel is you. Okay, it's each one of you in your home. What will be 400,000 coaches by the end of the year. I just looked at the numbers before I jumped on this call, and it was 366,000 coaches right now. And of course, we add and people fall away. But you're the channel by which we are choosing to meet and to drive this mission. And when I see you guys like this, it makes me sober, because it makes me realize the decisions we make, the direction we go, what we do is so critical, because you guys are relying on us to do that so that your dreams can come true. If you do the work, we'll be there if you put in the effort. And so I want you to know that we take this job seriously. I know as Patrick introduced me, he said, "Oh, so this is the guy that does National Wake Up Call and yada, yada, yada." Honestly, that's kind of the fluff part of this job. And it's probably the most visible part, but the meat behind what I do, behind what we do, Michael and Nima and I are really kind of co-partners in a way. We run the network. We report directly to Carl. And we're the ones that make the decisions, make the recommendation, work with our legal team to keep us legal, to keep this thing healthy and alive, so that you have a company, so that you have something that is going to be enduring. If you lay it out there, and we have people that are going, "Man, I want to leave my full-time job. I want to do this. I want to retire my spouse." Our job, the real meat of my job, is to take the experience that I have, the experience that Michael has, and to make good decisions that make this a sustainable, viable business. And so, yeah, there's the wake-up call, and there's the stuff that you see us do when we're at Summit, and kind of the fun stuff that we absolutely love and absolutely enjoy. But the real meaningful part is this other deal. So anyway, let me just say this. Thank you for who you are. Thank you for what you're doing, not only in having the self-leadership to lead your own life, to create change. And everybody's on their own journey, right? Everybody's got their own challenges, but you've made some decisions to do this, and I totally respect that. So thank you, and thank you for being willing to reach out and touch other people's lives. So tonight, what I want to do for a few minutes is I want to talk kind of boldly to you, if I can, okay, about I've been in the industry for some time now, and I've had the opportunity to see coaches, if you will, people that have been successful, and I've seen those that are not successful. I've seen people that have started, and I've seen people that have stopped. And so I want to share just a little bit of some of the characteristics of what I have seen people who have grown their business, and what some things that they have done. Okay. And I'm just going to throw this stuff out at you fast and furious, and hopefully there'll be some notes here that will be meaningful. And then obviously your job is as always is to take it, to condense it, and to say, what's stuck with me? Okay. What are those pieces that make sense to me? And my challenge to you will be, take 2 or 3. I'm going to throw a lot of stuff at you, but I want you to take 2 or 3 of these things. This is your homework assignment, and say, this is what I'm going to focus on. And I'm going to try and ask some questions at the end of 6 little segments to say, here's some ways to apply what I just said. Here's the question. How am I going to respond to this? And then I'd invite you, if we're friends on Facebook, if we're not, shoot a request and I'll accept it. I would invite you to shoot me just a personal Facebook message and just say, here's what I'm working on. Here's what my commitment is. And that's obviously that's your deal. So anyway, that's my little pitch. So there's a couple things I'm going to read, and so I'll try and stay focused, but a couple things I am going to read so I get it right. So I love this quote from Anthony Robbins. He says this: "I believe life is constantly testing us for our level of commitment." And here's the key part. life's greatest rewards are reserved for those who demonstrate a never-ending commitment to act until they achieve. Let me say that one more time. Life's greatest rewards are reserved for those who demonstrate a never-ending commitment to act until they achieve. This level of commitment can move mountains, but it must be constant and consistent. And as simplistic as this may sound, it is still the common denominator separating those who live their dreams and those who live in regret. It's the common denominator separating those who live their dreams and those who live in regret. One of my favorite quotes is, I'm kind of a quote guy because it seems like it capsulizes concepts and principles easily. But and my kids, like if they'll always just kind of go, okay, here's Dad's quote, here's Dad's quote. But one of them is, successful people are willing to do those things that unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. It's not that the successful people like doing those things anymore. It's that they know that they're critical to success. They don't like doing them any more than the other guy is, but they know that they're critical. They know that they're necessary. And as I've looked at successful coaches and I've looked at those that aren't, the common denominator is they keep doing those critical things. So with that, here's point one. And I want you to put yourself in the position today of being like, I'm a brand new coach. This is a fresh start. This is the do-over. If you're a golfer, this is a mulligan. I get a fresh start at this thing, okay? And look at we're halfway through, more than halfway through August, but it's September. But how you start. So here's number one. I want you to be gutsy and flamboyant, okay? So if you want to grow, if you want to build your business, you've got to start with some bold strokes, with being courageous. Your opening moves that you take have to be strong enough to overcome inertia and give you the momentum and create excitement inside. It's kind of like that rocket ship, that has the fuel. It burns off most of the fuel at the beginning to get past the gravity. But you've got to be bold in what you're willing to do, because audacious action energizes a person, okay? Again, it's like that rocket ship that's coming off of the launch pad. And gutsy moves will move you forward, and they'll enable you to escape that gravity that will hold you down. Now, new habits aren't easy to come by, right? And older habits are even tougher to break. D. Hawk, the founder of Visa, once said, the hard part's not getting new ideas into our mind, it's getting the old ones out. It's breaking those old ones. So if you're going to get growth in your business, you need to hit hard. You need to break your old routines. You need to shatter the status quo of the old. Okay. William James, he's a psychologist. He said this: there are 3 rules that you need to follow if you want to change your life. Number 1, you need to start immediately. Number 2, you need to do it flamboyantly. And number 3, no exceptions. That you need to bring a no matter what attitude to the approach that you're taking. And these kind of recommendations from William James, they produce this sense of urgency, almost an air of drama. I'm not a dramatic guy. I probably sound like I am right now, but it does create that air of drama with you and a level of commitment that you'll need. Bold moves you in a way that means you'll have to invest more in yourself. And if you look at it from this way, you'll be gambling a bigger amount right from the very outset. And that's a good thing. That goes a long way in keeping you in the game, because you're gambling on yourself. You've put it out there. It's like burning the boats. Okay, once you've been bold with who you're going to be, you're going to have to stick your neck out a bit, and you're going to win the war because you've cut off all your escape routes. You said, this is what I'm going to do. I put a stake in the ground. You're almost cornered by your own courageous acts, okay, if you will. I'm trying to throw out a lot of different ideas, hopefully some that will stick, but I love that concept that you're cornered by yourself, okay, and what you've said that you're willing to do, and then you have to rise to the occasion. Okay, so it's that boldness that is so key. Robert Fries, a Harvard guy, said this: the people who change best and fastest are the ones who have no choice. And I've seen that in my life, in numerous situations, when people create situations where they have no choice. It's like the show with Tom Hanks. It's the Houston, where they're struck up in the rocket ship, and he goes, Houston, we have a problem. It's like, failure's not an option. Okay, failure's not an option. You have to succeed on this. So here's question. The first point is this: be gutsy, be bold, be courageous in how you begin and what you're willing to do. So question number one for you is, how and what are you going to be bold about in your Beachbody business? And I'm obviously talking about Beachbody as a coaching. You can apply this to a number of things in your life, but what are you willing to be bold about? Is it achieving Success Club every month? Is it about becoming a lead? Is it about becoming a 5-star? Is it about, I will pay all my debt off and Beachbody is going to be the vehicle by whatever I do that. I'm going to retire my spouse. Whatever that might be, it needs to be bold, and you need to be able to answer that question. Okay, point number two, you need to leverage your big winner behaviors. Many of you have heard about the Pareto principle. It's known as the 80-20 rule, and it goes something like this, that 80% of your performance gains will come from 20% of your growth efforts. 80% of your performance gains come from 20% of your growth efforts. And once again, we're seeing this, we're saying that there's a few critical behaviors that will account for most of your fast or your great growth. And the biggest part of your efforts, say 80%, will be so much less effective that they'll produce only 20% of your improvements. So it's interesting, even as you look over time, how this rule, I used to not like that rule. I used to go, no, that's not right. I can prove that wrong. Patrick was an accountant, so he'd probably get into the numbers then and figure it out. But I used to think that was kind of defeatist behavior. But as I've come to realize behavior and activity, there really are critical behaviors, and we call them vital behaviors really in our business, that will produce the predictable greatest amount of results. And sometimes what we tend to do is we spread all of our energies around investing in a variety of activities that seem worthwhile. But our return on investment, okay, on those other activities, they vary, and they're so small that they're not worth the effort that we're putting in. So a few activities aimed at a very few particular goals, okay, end up making the major the major contributions to your personal growth. And of course, the key we're going to get to is, what are those behaviors? And the other key is, what behaviors can I get rid of that aren't really producing meaningful results? Because what you want in the end are results. You want outcome. It's not activity. It's not energy. It's not just effort that you put into this business. It's the outcome that matters. Okay, it's the result that matters for you in your life. Because you can say, man, I was busy, I did this, I did that. But if you're not growing in your business, you're not earning more income, you're not advancing other people, you're not retiring the debt, it's all for naught. So you've got to be able to draw a line between those activities and those outcomes. It's the high payoff areas. And there's no question that it's disproportionate in its approach. And so what you have to be is you have to be unfair, okay, in the things that you do. And again, you can't get everything by just being busy. So what we would do is we would say, what are the critical behaviors? Because there are going to be trade-offs in your business that you've got to focus on that will create those. So balance is something that everybody leans toward. Balance is something that everybody wants in their life. But I will tell you this, that balance is not a principle that works in getting growth, okay? Particularly as you're getting started in this business. You are going to have to identify some trade-offs, and you are going to have to very pointedly focus on those things that will create the greatest results. And you've got to figure out what those trade-offs are. And I'll tell you this, just, one reason we have the vital behaviors, and you know what, they're old, they may even be kind of not very, they're certainly not sexy, they're not new science or anything like that. But they're the vital behaviors because they're the behaviors that we've pinpointed as the key ones, if you focus on, will create the greatest results in your business. So your job, your role is to identify what activities are the most leveraged in your business and how they connect to the outcome, and then what activities you're going to choose to take off of your plate. Now, I think key with this is for you to really write down what your outcome is that you want as well. What I see time and time and time again with coaches is this concept of they have a goal that's here and they have activities over here that aren't aligned with their goals at all. And they're disappointed and they're discouraged, but it's completely understandable, because until you align your activities with your goals, one of two things has to happen. Either you have to lower your goals on this side to the activity level and the nature of your activities, okay, and then you'll meet them, or you have to identify the right activities and elevate them to the point to achieve your goals. If not, they're out of alignment and you will never meet those. And so that's a piece that you have, that moment of truth for you to say is, are my activities aligned with my goals? So number 2, Pareto principle, leverage your big winners. Number 3, this is something that I see many, many coaches struggle with, but I think this is something that each one of you has. It's the concept of you use it or you lose it. Okay. And it's simply this: using your talents. You have to engage yourself more fully if you're going to grow. Using your talents to grow to a greater degree doesn't use them up. Sometimes we're afraid to use our talents. We're afraid to use our abilities. But if we use those, they actually multiply. And I think it's a physics of growth that you can look at it as the law of increasing returns. The more you use your talents and your personal resources, the more you have to use. It's the parable of the biblical parable of the talents, if you will. But it's also a knife that cuts both ways. To the extent that we fail to use our talents, what happens? Our talents, our energies, the opportunities, the gods take them away. If we choose not to use them, they wither up, they shrink, they disappear. And you can't save them up, okay? You have to use them. And I happen to be someone that believes that every single person on this good old earth has this kind of a divine DNA. I believe every person on this earth has specific talents and abilities and strengths. And part of the reason that you're here on this earth is to figure out what those are and how they can help you become a better person, and how you can then use those to help other people. And, kind of personal philosophy. But again, it's this idea that the minute that you stop using them, you're going to lose them. We all know that you have to spend, you've heard the thought of you have to spend money to make money. You've got to use muscle to make muscle. You've got to plant seeds if you're going to get more seeds. Again, it's that biblical parable of the talents that works. And if you work on growing, the easier it becomes to grow. And the faster you develop yourself and your talents, the faster you accelerate your development even more, and that accelerates your ability to grow. So really what this means, one of our vital behaviors is this concept of personal development. So as you develop yourself, as you identify and develop those talents, you increase your ability to grow faster. As you identify what your strengths are, what your gifts are, and invest in those, okay, the faster growth you can have. And if you feel like you're not growing, and I'm sure you can all relate to this, I feel this way many times. If I feel like I'm not growing, oftentimes it's because I'm not spending my talents wisely. I'm sitting on my potential instead of putting it to work. And I find that, I get stagnant. And so the trick is, if you want more out of yourself, then you've got to identify what it is, and then you've got to use it, and you've got to invest in it. You've got to spend it. You've got to use it. This is a time when, man, you want to use it all, because the more you use, the more will be developed. Otherwise, it disappears. So, and you can look at it this way, that if you decide to wait to develop your talents, to develop yourself, to find out what these strengths are, the less you have when you decide to actually begin to work them, okay? So you can wait. It's not like they store up and build, but they're going to diminish, and you're going to have less once you're going to start. So I personally believe that you're all blessed, each one of you. If I could sit down, if I sat down, I think I don't have a lot of gifts and abilities, but one of my gifts and abilities is to identify gifts and strengths in other people. And if I were to sit down with each one of you, I'm pointing at each one of you guys going across here for 5 minutes, I could figure out what it is. And so that's a time that you need to take with yourself to figure out what those are, because you have been blessed with talents and abilities. And maybe you need to go to someone else to say, what is it? Help me identify it. What do I do well? How does it apply to this business? And make that work. So here's the question for you. What gifts, what strengths do you have? How do they apply to your business? And then maybe the bigger question is, how are you going to choose to invest in those talents? So for example, and I'm going to just kind of open up myself a little bit on this, kind of a vulnerability. One of the things that I feel like I do fairly well is I can communicate with people. Okay. And I think that's one of my gifts. And I think I'm, and I'm not trying to brag here, but I think I'm good at it. Okay. If I were taking my own medicine right now, where I would spend more time, I actually would invest in more presentation skills and abilities. I would invest in speaking lessons or in those kinds of things, so that strength that I think is decent could actually become very, very good. And I share that example with you just because I want to be open and say it's something like that. And investing it may mean just using it. And the wonderful part about where we live today is that you can get almost anything you want off of YouTube, in the internet. I mean, you can learn almost anything, there, and get development. So it's not further than like 3 clicks away, for that help in your life. So discover your talents and invest in those. Okay, I'm going too long, so I'm going to move fast here, Patrick. So
I can't believe that you've never had any speaking lessons or anything like that. That's amazing to me. No, well, I haven't, and honestly, I should. I mean, it's one of those pieces. I've talked to my wife, to Joette, about it. She said, I really should do this, because it's something where I feel like I could get good. But anyway, anyway, enough of that. This is about you guys and figuring out what talents and skill sets and abilities that you have. Okay, point number 4, and this goes hand in hand with one kind of the strengths piece, is that you have to be sharply pointed rather than well-rounded. Now, here's what this means, and this is something that most people really don't want to hear, okay? Is this. People want balance in life. They want and I think we all do. We want overarching balance. But in order to get there, there have to be seasons of imbalance in your life. And I think anyone that's gone after anything, if it's running a marathon or going to school, I went to law school, done a lot of things where there's been tremendous seasons of imbalance in my life, when I've had to burn the midnight oil at many ends in order to kind of get what we've gotten. And I think a lot of people would argue, Jeff, you've got this great balanced life. And I would, looking around in a lot of respects, I go, I think I have, but I've also had many seasons of imbalance on this. As you look at your business, as you look at your life, and you look at the goals that you have, you have to be willing to sacrifice. Okay, you have to be willing to have trade-offs in that. Now, let me put this under the umbrella first of this. My strong message to you, because this has happened, is this. Never, as we talk about trade-offs, the thing you cannot afford to trade off is your values and your principles and the things that matter most to you. So when I talk about this stuff, as you put the effort in, when you start sensing that you may be sacrificing what matters most to you from a family, from a relationship, from a marriage, from children, yes, you might have to burn the midnight oil on things, but you can never sacrifice and give those things away. And yeah, I think you'll know when you're doing that. But as you grow, growth really is a sacrificial act. You will have to steal from some areas of your life, and you're going to have to give. You're going to have to take from here and give from here to grow over there. And the more growth you want, there have to be more serious trade-offs. That's just kind of the law of you know, the give and take. And so as you look at these goals, you do have to be willing to sacrifice, to give trade-offs. You have to be able to whittle down and sharpen what your focus is and what you're willing to do. And what I found and what I've noticed with most people is there are trade-offs that most people can make in their lives. There are choices of time that most people can make in giving up. You know what? You may have to give up, put up, you know, hang up the tennis racket or the golf clubs or that favorite show. You know, the fact that Scandal is your favorite show and you've DVR'd it, you know, and that's the one sacred hour you have, that 40 minutes or the reruns on that or whatever, you know, whatever it is, that may be the time that you choose, that you're trading off to say, I'm going to spend this hour, and the cumulative effect of that over time is significant. And those are the types of trade-offs that you have to be willing to make up. And let's be honest, if you're being really honest with yourself, there is stuff in all of your lives that deserves to starve to death, okay? You deserve to give it away, to put it on the side. You know, it's the clutter that's crept into your life that really doesn't contribute in any meaningful way to your future, okay? And I think that as you look at that and if you keep that out, your future and what you want out in front of you, you've got to ask yourself, is this taking me closer towards that? You know, it's oftentimes it's the diddly routines that we follow out of habit that is so hard to give up. It may be the urgent or the trivial gunk in our lives that nags at us for our attention. But it doesn't do anything, but it does nothing to help us grow. It's nothing that adds to the bottom line. So what you have to do is you have to think few. You have to concentrate on the essentials, and you have to figure out what to ignore, to starve, okay? It's you know, we have so many choices. It's almost like you've got these beggars at the table, you know, that you're just going, we got to push them away, you know, and we can only feed those things that are going to really matter in our lives. So think this way, think contained, think compressed, think channeled. Those are kind of the 3 C words I'd use: contained, compressed, channeled. Because if you do that, or concise, I mean, I think there's some great words there, is you narrow those down, what that does is that gives you clarity, and it gives you power, and it gives you focus, and it allows you to focus on those pieces we talked about early, on the Pareto principle things that are going to produce the greatest results in your life. And there's also something about decluttering your life that's very freeing and empowering, because it says to you, I'm taking charge of my life and putting those things that matter most. So here's the point: be sharply pointed rather than well-rounded. Here's the question: what are you willing to let go? What are you willing to trade off? Okay. What are you willing to say, I'm going to let this one go so I can have this one? And you know what? You might have to just slowly I wouldn't tell you to slowly let it go, but it may be something small, because, you know, it's hard for us to let go of things, but identify something and create a win out of that to prove to yourself that you can do it. Create some quick wins in your behavior that sends the message to you that you can do this, okay? If you try to let go, and let me also counsel you this, if you were to say, I'm going to take these 10 things and get rid of them, I'd go, no, don't do it that way. Don't do it that way. Because what happens is that you've just violated what I've told you to do, okay? You haven't gone concise, channeled, simplify, you know, into a few. Take 1 or 2 that you can channel your energies on and get rid of those out of your life first. Because if you take 10 and you fail on one, what you've said to yourself all of a sudden is, I'm a failure on that one, and everything else has gone down the toilet with that one. That's kind of human behavior. So think few. So what are you willing to trade off, and what are you going to be focused on? And remember this concept that this is a go-to deal, that things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least in your life. Okay? Things that matter most should never be sacrificed, or must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. Okay, 2 more, and then we'll wrap up here. It's this concept that here's what you have to expect: resistance. And the goal here is to stretch out when resistance hits. When you push yourself to grow, okay, you're hitting yourself where it hurts in your life. You're hitting yourself in your habits. You're moving yourself out of the comfort zone. You start interfering with familiar routines. You're disturbing your familiar patterns that you live your life in. And guess what? There's something deep inside of us that pushes back on us when we try and do that. And those are the moments of truth. And you're going to find out in those moments how much you really want what you're going after. But you have to know that resistance is going to come, okay? And it's so know that, and know that you need to have a plan for when resistance hits you. The biggest challenge to overcome will be the resistance, will be your own resistance. Yeah, there may be resistance from the outside, but the biggest is going to come from within. And it's kind of human nature that I don't know why it is, but we fight so hard to keep ourselves the way we are, that to be comfortable with this, and changing is just a tough thing, so you need to get to know the enemy within, so to speak. Understand how resistance operates in your life. And then you've got to expect to attack it and learn how to conquer it, because otherwise what will happen is that your growth efforts will fizzle out and you'll fall short of what you wanted. So as soon as you start this journey of going after what you want to go after, resistance is going to rear its ugly head, okay? And you need to know that you can't let it take you by surprise. You need to be right there with it. And it's just as if you would expect to feel stiff and sore if you began a brand new exercise program. We all know that's going to happen, right? And if we quit the first moment that we feel stiff, we feel uncomfortable, we'd never get the results we want. Resistance to growth in any other area of our life is the same way. And resistance is also a great con artist. It tries to make you believe that sticking with your growth plans will be too painful in your life. It's just kind of that psychological thing that it's too difficult, that it's not worth the struggle. And it wants to sweet talk you into selling out your future for a little intermediate or little immediate comfort. And I love that thought, that it tries to sweet talk you into selling out your future for a little immediate comfort. But just like stretching out and continuing your physical exercise helps you work out the muscle soreness, hanging in there with your growth program helps you push past the resistance. So remember this really important point. Resistance grows stronger with any evidence of weakening resolve, okay? But it also yields to renewed effort. It will grow with weakening resolve, but it yields to renewed effort. So the best thing that you can do to conquer the enemy, resistance, is to attack it head on, is to stretch yourself a bit more and to push for growth. And it's in this book, I don't know, I've got it here somewhere. It's this, Carl had put me onto it, and it's an author that actually lives down the street from us. So talking about change anything, but he talks about 2 things. He talks about crucial moments, and he talks about critical behaviors. It's about how to change habits. And the whole idea beforehand is to change a habit or to change behavior is that to sit back and go, when will I feel these moments? When will I see resistance coming? And that's going to be that moment of truth, or a crucial moment that you know is going to hit when someone's going to say, you're an idiot. Why are you doing this? I mean, why are you sacrificing all of this? This is never going to work. This is that. You can't do this. You can never lose that much weight. All of those things. Or within, when you're saying, I know that the first time I was told no, I'm going to feel rejected. I'm going to have doubts that this isn't going to work. That's the crucial moment. That's the moment of truth, okay? You need to identify what those could look like beforehand. And then the second piece is to identify the critical behaviors that you'll engage in that will get you past those moments. And that could be any number of things. It means that the minute you're told no, what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to invite somebody else, and you're going to invite somebody else. Or that you know what you're going to do if someone tells you no and you feel rejected, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to open up a personal development book. or you've got a success partner, or you're going to sing your favorite song, or you're going to go run 10 miles and then you're going to come back. But it's to identify a critical behavior that will help you push through the resistance that comes into your life. Napoleon once said, if you start to take Vienna, okay? Don't stop. You know you're going to have resistance, okay? That is part of life, and it's how you manage that and push through that fast, the more successful you'll be. So your question is, in this piece is what are the crucial moments that you've seen where resistance rears its head, okay, that you know will rear its head time and time again, and what are some critical behaviors that you can do to attack that resistance that will push you through it, okay? So resistance. Last point is this, is you have to act. You've got to jump. Favorite quote, another one of my favorite quotes, I've got a million, is sometimes you just have to jump and build your wings on the way down, okay? Sometimes you just have to jump and build your wings on the way down. This is a business that's easier to build fast than it is slow. You will never know everything you need to know before you can go on this. You have to start. And sometimes people get paralyzed by planning. They freeze up getting prepared to grow. It seems we want to figure out all of the answers before we start working on the problem. And we like to do our learning first and then put it into action. But growth, the people that have grown the best, take honestly a bit of a freewheeling approach. They learn on the basis of learning as they go, not before they go, and they keep going, because getting ready gives you this feeling of progress, but usually it's just a delaying tactic that gets in the way of what your growth could be. Getting going puts you further down the road, and so your growth strategy has to be on your part, a willingness to move. And that's why I started out on this whole thing with saying, be bold, be courageous, be audacious. Go for something. The more in you are, okay, the more you've gambled on yourself, the more apt you are to keep this going. We need to be like a little kid, that you plop in front of a computer or you put it behind the wheel of the car or whatever. I mean, there's no fear. They just keep going and they start to figure it out by pushing buttons and doing things. And the older we get, I don't know why it is, the more fearful we become of those things. But you just need to keep going in your business and act. Life rewards action. Okay? Life rewards action. It does not reward pausing. It does not reward sitting still. Just pointing at this book for one more second, and I shared a little of this at Summit, but one of the pieces that I was watching the Elite 10 at Cancun, and I was asking them questions on stage, and I asked them and while they were answering questions, I really wasn't listening to them. I was but I wasn't. I was trying to figure out, so why are these guys successful? Okay, why are they successful? What are they doing that other people aren't doing? And one of the pieces that always comes out is this concept of, consistency and persistency. And those are buzzwords, and they're very, very true. And as I read this book, Change Anything, I realized that there's kind of a level below that. And what consistency really is, and what these successful coaches have done is, yes, they've been consistent, but they've had the ability, as this book calls it, to turn, as they're acting and as they keep going, the ability to turn bad days into good data. Okay, turn bad days into good data, where they've had a bad experience, where they've had a rough experience, where they've had rejection or disappointment. Instead of being disappointed, disillusioned, discouraged, all these D words, okay, that they could be, they get curious, okay? They turn what could be a negative into curiosity. And then what they do is they understand it. And they go, what went right? What went wrong? Why didn't that work? How could I do that better? And then they rinse and repeat. Okay? So they rinse out the bad stuff out of it, and they try it again. And then they get curious until they start to refine this, and it gets better and better and better. And so, oftentimes we look at these coaches where we look at these coaches where we're saying, oh,
They're so great. They've perfected this stuff. They weren't born that way. It didn't happen overnight. What they've done is they've stumbled forward. They haven't stumbled downward. They continue to stumble forward, and they do that by becoming curious in their business. And so, my challenge to you guys is to get curious, and then continue the process. We have systems out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. I think you have to personalize it to you, but you've got to refine that and create your own recipe out of that so that it becomes who you are. Okay. So as the last point, it would be leaving this call. You have to act. You've got to take that bold, audacious move that we talked about at the beginning. You've got to know that you've got to get pointed. You've got to get clear. You've got to narrow what those are. You've got to expect resistance is going to be there. You got to know what pieces you're going to use to fight the resistance. And then you got to know that, you are going to stumble. Okay. You are going to fall. Okay. And, but if you're stumbling forward, that's how it works. And you keep getting better. I'm always amazed at coaches that look at this business and they'll spend 30 years, 20 years, whatever number of years it is in a regular job being paid, whatever they're paying, and they're willing to take that for their entire life. Okay. At 3% increases in their income, whatever they call it, wage living, the increase. And I watch them do that. And then they compare it, if they're not successful in this business, when they've been dabbling at it, when they've been treating it as a hobby, when they haven't created a six-figure income, they throw their hands up in the air and they go, "This doesn't work." Okay, this doesn't work. And I just, I want to shoot myself. You want to grab them, and just go, "Come on, really? Think about this," And so what you have to do is you do have to act, and you have to be consistent. I'm going to end with this quote, because at the end as well, it's all about you, and it's all about what you're willing to do and your choice. This comes from a book called Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a psychologist in the Second World War. He was a Jewish individual who was imprisoned in a prison camp, and all around him, the atrocities of you guys all know what happened in those prison camps, the worst atrocities, in the world. And as you watched human behavior, this is something that he shared, and I think this is kind of the essence of what we have. He goes, "The one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond to what you do to me. The last of one's freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given circumstance. We who lived in concentration camps can remember the men who walked through the huts comforting others, giving away their last piece of bread. They may have been few in number, but they offer sufficient proof that everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. It did not really matter what we expected from life, but rather what life expected from us. We needed to stop asking about the meaning of life and instead to think of ourselves as those who were being questioned by life, daily, hourly. Our answer must consist not in talk, not in meditation, but in right action, and in the right conduct. Life ultimately means taking the responsibility to find the right answer to its problems and to fulfill the tasks which it constantly sets for each individual. Here's the key. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Now, that's kind of a heady quote. Okay, kind of a heavy thing. But here's what that means, is that you get to choose. Nobody can take that away from you. Okay, can take that away from you. every single day, every single morning. You get to choose, regardless of your situation, regardless of what happened, what has happened in your life. You have the ability to choose who you are becoming, how you are going to act, how you're going to treat this business, how you're going to react when resistance comes your way. You have the opportunity to choose. Here's what I know. There is a wonderful opportunity out there for people who choose to hang in there, to learn what the business is, not the tricks of the trade, but to learn the trade. I've seen people in this business that I would have never thought would be successful, would have never thought would be successful. And it embarrasses me to say that, I missed it, on that, because those people have discovered what their strengths are. They've hung in there, they've identified those strengths, and they've consistently applied those, and they have changed their lives, and they have changed thousands of lives around them. And not only that, the cool thing about this business is I see some couples that are on this call together. The thing that's kind of cool about it to me, and I see family. I'm looking right now at Nicoletta, Victoria, Steelwitz right there, and they've got a little boy that's beside them. And here's what's happening, is that those parents are teaching that little boy, okay, about determination, about grit, about how to change their lives, how to be determined. And they're teaching him to do hard things in life, and that great things can come from developing the ability to do hard things. And this isn't easy, but the rewards for doing what you do, the return on that can be significant beyond what you can ever imagine. And I promise you that as a company, from a Jeff Hill perspective, as long as I've got a heart beating in me, and as long as I'm in this company, and I know as long as Carl Deichler is here, that we will continue to try and make good decisions, right decisions, the decisions that you can rely on, that when you put your effort into this, that there will be a company there for you that can bless and reward your efforts. So with that, Patrick, I went on way too long, but that's all.
Cool. That was awesome. The chat box was blowing up. That was great.
Must be a short fuse.
Yeah. You have time for one question?
I've got time for two questions.
Okay. I posted in the group. The one that kept coming up was kind of where you see Beachbody in the next 5-10 years, and kind of how does like the UK play into that, and just kind of global in general.
Yeah. So great question. So I smile at us as a company because I touched on this just at the beginning, is that, we are a young company. I mean, really, when you look at particularly from a network marketing, perspective, we've been in it about 8 years in the United States and Canada. I was talking to someone out the door here before this meeting, and yeah, I honestly don't like talking about, how much money we've made, as a company. It's a metric for measurement of what we are, and people use it against you. They use it for, we tout it when it's great, and when it starts to flatten out, people point at you. But the reality is that we will end on the network part of things well north of $800 million this year. It'll be 50% plus growth, which is just kind of crazy. And that's great. It's because you guys are doing so many right things out there. But where I see us 5 years from now, what I was going to say about this number is that probably places us, from network marketing companies anyway, probably, give me some permission on this one because I could be wrong. But I think that it probably places us in the top 5 companies in the United States from an income standpoint, for doing business just in the United States. We do business in Canada too, but that's where all of our income comes from. And that's not including the direct response part of the business. I shared at Summit, we should be in the $1.2 billion when we put that part in, but that's another part of the business. And so, as I look at us, over the next 2-3 years, I think that trend will just continue to develop, throughout the United, particularly through North America. And I think people that choose to partner with us are going to be rewarded. I don't want to get into a bunch of richly rewarded. I think people will be rewarded. I think people's lives will change over these next 2 to 3 years significantly. We have a plan to expand internationally. Our plan to expand internationally is not one to run fast and go quickly. And part of the reason for that is because we still think that there's tremendous opportunity in our own backyard. It's easier to build in our own backyard. We want to do it right when we go internationally. We will expand to English-speaking countries first. UK will be a country that we go into. I'm not going to say when, where, although we do have a map and we do have a plan for when and where we will move. We'll move into those countries. But we're not going to be greedy, and we're not going to be dumb about it. Many multi-level marketing companies, and by the way, you will never hear me refer to us as a multi-level marketing company. You're going, huh? What's that all about? Here's why, is because yes, we have a multi-level marketing compensation plan. But the minute we start referring to ourselves that way, I've been in the industry long enough where that pulls you into a stigma of certain companies where they tend to be money and opportunity first, and not product-driven companies. And we are a company that is based on products first, on changing people's lives first, and that drives an opportunity. It's not an opportunity that drives the product. It's the product and the life-changing piece that creates an opportunity for people. And that will create sustainability and longevity in the business. And so I choose not to call us an MLM. I call us a network marketing company, but many
calls it a multi-level health
company. Yeah, he kind of threw that one out. I don't even like that one. I try and go, don't even go. It's just to get flirting with it, Carl. But sometimes he thinks he's the CEO and that he's calling the shots. I give Carl permission to be wrong sometimes.
Yeah,
so I hope this isn't being recorded. But we will go international. We'll go international, but and I know you've probably, the reason for the question is you've got connections. People have connections that are there. I would also just share with you, your most fertile ground is in your own backyard. You start going internationally, you have to ask yourself, have I developed an organization and leaders underneath me in my organization that are strong enough if I'm going to go international, that I've got to go international. That when I leave them here, they can stand on their own. That they're self-sufficient. That they can withstand you as their leader. Being gone, because that's what it'll take to build internationally. It's like anything; it takes attention. So, does that answer your question? I mean, I just see us as, when I said earlier on that we'll become, I think, the most. Our goal is to become the most well-respected, most recognized, health and fitness company in the world. I think that's what we're doing. Beachbody on Demand will play a big part of that as we move down the road. Right now it's kind of invisible to a lot of people. Carl's giving a lot of airtime, but it will continue. It will continue to get traction. That people, when they start thinking health and fitness and reliable health and fitness that creates real results, they will think Beachbody. I think many think that way now, but that footprint will continue to spread.
Awesome, love it. Time for one more.
Yep.
So my go-to thing is it's consistency. That's kind of like the bottom line. I think we all kind of know what we need to be doing every day. It's just a matter of doing it on the days you don't feel like it. But I kind of liked what you touched on, and you said you were looking at those top 10 elite, and you said that it kind of was an underlying below consistency, that they turned bad days into good data. Do you mind just kind of expanding on that for a minute or two?
Yeah. You'd have to break into the specific situations. But I think, for example, challenge groups, okay, or a Coach Basics group. Let me just take it to something that's very applicable, I think, to everybody on this call. Is that I'd say, okay, how many of you have run a challenge group? How many of you have run a Coach Basics group? And many people go, man, I tried it and I invited people and nobody responded. And so, that's not for me. I'm going to try and find another way. Didn't really work very well. So those, if you're one of those people, you fall into that category of the one that becomes discouraged, disillusioned, disappointed. Help you figure out some other D words, but kind of those kinds of things. The curious ones, the persistent and consistent ones will look at that and they'll go, okay, so this Coach Basics thing, or this challenge group approach to the business, look at it and understand it. Say, fundamentally, it's got the right stuff. It creates the right environment. It creates the right material. So I tried this and it didn't work very well. Okay, so maybe it was my inviting. Maybe I didn't give enough lead time. Maybe I should have done more of this or less of this. And they get curious as to what they do. And they don't give up on the first time. Okay. It's like, even if it's just inviting people, into the business, there is a skill set, okay, that should be developed. One of the books that I'm sure many of you have read is the Eric Worre book on GoPro. And I think it's a great fundamental book. And one of the reasons I think it's a great fundamental book is I think he hits most of the fundamentals and the basics, very, very well. But probably the most important piece out of that book to me is that what he says is you have to make a decision if you want to become a professional in this arena, okay? Because if you're just, again, a hobbyist, if you're just learning the tricks of the trade, the shortcuts on this, I mean, how many of you would want to go to a doctor, to a brain surgeon, take your kids to a brain surgeon that, had, knew the tricks of the trade, that had gone all the shortcuts? Well, nobody wants to do that. They're not going to be effective. Similarly, in your business, to the degree that you've become a professional and made that decision, it's trial and error, and it's learning. It's like in medical practice. It's like a law practice. You continue to work and you refine those skills. The successful coaches don't take that bad data, okay, that may be bad feedback on themselves, and they go, how do I make it better? How do I rinse it to clean it up a little bit, and then repeat it to make it better? And then they rinse and repeat again, okay? Because they'll get a little bit better, and they'll learn, and they'll learn, and they'll learn. But each time they're stumbling forward. So does that help, Patrick, on kind of the idea of bad data, getting curious, and turning it into good data? All of a sudden it's good data because it helps you get better.
No, absolutely. We talk about that all the time. You got to get your nose. You're planting seeds. But when those no's come around and you plant those seeds, you got to be consistent with your own journey. It'd be kind of like going to someone who's a brain surgeon, but they've never done a surgery yet. They're going to your patient's going to say no at first, but then if they watch you and that brain surgeon is consistent with doing good surgeries over and over, those people are going to be watching that, and eventually they're going to come around and want to join one of their challenge groups or their brain surgery.
Yeah. I practiced law for like eight years, and very honestly, I wouldn't have wanted to have been one of my first clients. Okay.
Right.
Fortunately, I had supervision and someone looking over my shoulder and helping me so that I didn't totally mess things up. But I got better, and I got better, and I got better. And got feedback. And that's why having a success partner is great. That's why having good upline support. That's why having just someone that's trusted. That's why best practicing against, the personal development and reading those things is so key. So anyway, Patrick, I have to bow out. I have a bunch of boys I'm supposed to be taking to a museum of art tonight, and I'm so excited about it. I can hardly stand it.
Yeah. Well, on behalf of Team Boom, I just want to say thank you. We have a funny way of telling our guest speakers thank you. We're going to do that real quick. I'm going to unmute everybody, and then we'll let you get out of here and pick a museum because I know you really want to get there. All right, guys. Boom on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Oh, I just put goosebumps. What can I say? All right. Hey, again, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Let's rock this thing. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, guys.